All right. Okay, everybody. So what we're going to do today is we're going to warm up. Anytime you go to practice, I'm not saying you're going to do this like in clinical world, right? Yeah, you get it before you get on the clock, you go in the back and be like flexion, extension. Right? But for us, I think it's important that we practice one of our examples that I think we should have a good grasp of before we move on to more illusionary. I'm not going to say more difficult. It's just, I think I've set a precedent that sometimes human movement could trick our brains into going one way, right? So it's not that it's impossible. I'm just giving you a heads up that some of these next examples are going to go into that illusionary category that we're going to work on, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to ride the bike. So let's do this one as a warm up. Remember, your main questions you're going to have to answer. External forces influencing joint motion. So there are internal forces that are influencing our joint motion. The joint motions that are actually being influenced by these muscles, and then the specific contraction types that they are doing that work via. That made me sound smart for a double via. So remember, I told you guys sometimes the external force is going to be obvious. Like if I started here, it's pretty obvious. But sometimes we may start without the external force. So what we do is we just skip that and go to what we do know. So if there's, like in other words, if all the plates were stacked and her leg was at rest right here, and this should be kind of common sense, right? Her leg's just at rest, then just go to the joint motion first and say that was left hip abduction. And then say during that abduction, what was the external force trying to do? Oh, it was trying to adduct. So again, it goes to those things where if you have the variables you can solve for, so it may not always start with external force, but when you put the stuff you know, then the other variables will present. Does that make sense? So we can go from here to there, and the external force is trying to adduct during this motion. So I need the abductors. Abductors will do the abduction through concentric contraction. Good warm up. And then if I asked you, I could flip the images and start follow-up question. We're good. Follow-up question. Please, if you do though, I always want people to feel comfortable to ask a question. Because it gets wordy, flexors, flexion, extensors, extension. But I promise you, when you get the hang of this, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier than saying piriformis adduction eccentrically right away. Once we get the hang of muscles based off of their pull, who they are becomes super simple. Okay? So I could flip these images and start here and then go there. And the students who typically will miss this aren't doing the work, aren't coming to class and listening. They're just going to say, oh, I know that's adduction, must be adductors, because they just want to associate specific muscles with specific motion. You're like, no, why would it be adductors? If it was muscles that pulled in the same direction as the exercise, she literally slammed her feet. Right? That's that thought experiment we talked about last class, right? Like you can literally ask yourself, why in the world would I need muscles that pull in? I need muscles that pull out to let me go in during this exercise. Any questions about that warm-up? Okay. Let's get to the proverbial meat, potatoes, and freshly baked muffins. Today's lecture sheet. I'm Hufflepuff, so not. It looks like it's moving, and it is. We're walking down a path. Isometrically. I'm going to hopefully, by the time we're done with this class in 415, unravel the mystery of core. My students, I want you to be prepared to not just do like everybody else and say core when there's a way to figure out which specific muscles are working. And it's no different than the other ways we figure out which specific muscles we work. But we have to be beyond core. We have to know which specific obliques. We have to know these things for rehabilitation purposes, right? There's going to be some times where it's indicated, contraindicated. So starting off easy. isometrically. The TheraBand is trying to pull his trunk to the left. So therefore, I need muscles that are pulling my trunk to the right transversely. We are going to call those muscles right transverse trunk rotators. And then in biomechanics, I'm going to teach you about the externals and the internals and how they work to pull in that direction of motion. But you don't have to literally see them yet. You just have to understand that if the cable is trying to twist his trunk to the left, I have to have muscles that twist the trunk to the right to prevent the left, okay? It looks like it's influencing, and it is. Now let's add some movement. Find what I was searching for. Let's add some movement. Let's do this one on your own. Taking our steps. It looks like it's moving, and it is. Let's start from the left, go to the right, regardless of if you see there's tension or not. It doesn't matter. Go to motion first, and then imagine what the cable would be trying to do after. Let's do a full cycle so that way we're prepared for the test. Left to right. Like it's the first question, and then right, let's go back for a full range of motion. We should be able to identify external forces, agonists, motions, and contractions. Fair? It looks like it's moving, and it is. And then we'll get to the other way. Grace knows where we're going with this station. That's all this is. Great. I did an auction Saturday night for a biker gang in Alexandria. They were so cool. They were raising money for St. James. But you talk about apple, banana, strawberry, sledgehammer. But I grew on them like a fungus. I think they like good times, good times. They were cool. Does anybody need help? See, like maybe it's, hey, this step is still kind of, if does anybody need help? We're good. I mean, I need help, but not for the biomechanics parts. Is there anybody else team Hufflepuff? Yeah, I wouldn't admit. Y'all are probably some Ravenclaws. Y'all are educated. You never seen Harry Potter?
I've seen good stuff.
Yeah.
My friends told me I'm a Hufflepuff, but
You're
I also
Hufflepuff.
just I haven't watched it either.
I always joke, my son and I identify as Hufflepuff, but I always joke with him since I'm dyslexic, I'm a Pufflehuff. He's like, that's Steve. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay, guys. External force in this exercise would be trying to twist her to the left. So she would need muscles that are pulling to the right. When I see right transverse trunk rotation, it's going to happen concentrically. And when those same muscles, heck, those same muscles can just hold her in this position, which probably would happen to this photo, isometrically, right, preventing it from coming back. And so we have to think of it like this. The muscles that pulled her to the right transversely could always defeat the tug of war of that cable, of that exercise. You couldn't move it if you weren't greater. The potential to be greater. So we have to think of it like that. We're playing tug of war with kids that don't pull as hard as us. So we are dictating who wins and who we choose to let the weight win. We can win and then say, you know what, I'm Ted I'm stubborn. I ain't gonna let you win, but then you're just gonna hold it there until we're letting the cable in. We're letting the motion go back the other way. Because here's the thought experiments if we did, here's our options. Right transverse pulleys, let me left transverse. Right transverse pulleys turn off and then the cable left transverses. Or right transverses turn off and left turn on. And you got two teams pulling on the rope as we go fast. Does that make sense? So logically, we could see how it must be the ones pulling this way to let me go back the other. That's weird for our brains. But that's why I keep coming back to the elevator. The elevator pulling up lets you come down at the speed, nice, safe, allowing you to go down while still pulling up. All right, Grace, here we go. Before I pull this photo up, I'm going to start isometric. I need to remind you about pelvic girdle rotations. Okay? Remember the lecture about the basketball? And the pelvic girdle rotations are how the pelvis is spinning, but it's not a separate joint. It's a concept because the right side and the left side have to move together, but it could be because of right hip motion, because of left hip motion, because of both hip motions, or because of the trunk. Remember, like when we were off the ground doing pelvic girdle rotations. So we have to accept that and then say, well, if the motions are dependent on specific muscles, if the pelvic girdle rotations are specific to specific joints, then the muscles that are spinning the pelvic girdle are specific to specific joints. Meaning, we do not have pelvic girdle rotators. We have hip muscles that can rotate the pelvis. And we have trunk muscles that can rotate the pelvis. But the reason we can't say pelvic girdle rotators is because they could be different muscles. It could be the left hip muscles or the right hip muscles or both hips or the trunk. It can be different answers. When I say elbow flexors, it's the same muscles every time. When I say right lateral cervical benders, it's the same muscles every time. But I can't say pelvic girdle rotators because it might be my right hip extensors, it might be my left hip extensors. Or it might be my trunk muscle. It could be different answers. Does that make sense? So here's the important part. We acknowledge the pelvic girdle rotation, and then when it comes to agonist, we have to bring it back to the trunk or the hip muscles. And that's where the cap and bottle stuff comes in. Okay? All right, I think we're prepared, Grace. We're about to find out. Isometrics. Gravity is trying to twist the pelvis. I'm not going to tell you how, but in the pelvis's transverse plane, gravity is trying to cause transverse pelvic girdle rotation. You have to figure out which kind. Then you have to figure out, well, if gravity's trying to twist the pelvis this way, then it must also be trying to twist the trunk in a certain way. Does that make sense? What was our landmarks for trunk? Sternum and hips, right? So you could also think of it like that. How is gravity trying to make the sternum look at which hip? It's another way to look at it. Is gravity trying to make the sternum look more to the right hip or more to the left hip? That's your answer for what is the external force of gravity trying to do to the trunk. Once you can figure out what gravity is trying to do to the trunk, then you can play the same game we've been playing. Well, if gravity's trying to do that to my trunk, I don't need muscles that are trying to do that also. I need the opposite. And go. Identify the agonist at the trunk that's being used isometrically to maintain that position. Tell you what, wow, let me see if I have cough. That cold weather is doing something on my sinuses. What's that?
I think I have one.
Yay, I'll take that. Free cola.
They're balls.
It's all good. All's good. Thank you. Meatballs, soup balls. So I don't know if you're doing this method, maybe remind yourself, hey, we're looking at trunk muscles because the trunk muscles is what's spinning the pelvis. Just like the basketball. The basketball can't spin itself. Something has to spin the basketball, and that's what we're answering. What was responsible for the pelvic girdle rotation?
So on that thing, what's C for again?
What is the what?
B.
Well, you could put whatever letter you want, but B stands for body joint motion because I just loved ABC. So A worked out with agonist, C worked out with contraction, but a big J or JM right there just kind of stood out like a sore thumb. However, this is just a tool. It's just a teaching tool. So you could put whatever, if having the J for joint motion is easier to remember, then by all means do it. I'm never going to ask you on the test, what does this mean or what does that mean? It's just a tool to help us try to figure out the things we need to know. It's a great question.
Or
Yeah. So in this case, there would be no motion, right?
yeah.
So if muscles are preventing motion, then it would be isometry. Yeah. Because gravity is still trying to cause a motion. But if there is literally no motion, then we know that those muscles are doing physiological work isometric. Grace, I will explain my process. If it matches up with yours, great. If you have a different way to get, guys, I just want us to get to the same place. And it's perfectly logical that different people will have different ways as long as we are getting to the same place. That's all I care about. When I was a kid, like we'd get points off if we didn't show our work. I wasn't a shower. I just did it. And I got in trouble for it. I don't care if you could just see it and know it, great. If you have your own process, great. Just need to be consistently getting to the same place. All right, guys, this is how I approach this problem. Remember, we are beyond core. You know darn well if we survey several healthcare professionals, it's not their fault. Maybe they just weren't taught how to figure this stuff out. And we said, hey, what specific muscles are we working in this exercise? Because the doctor said I need to avoid working this specific muscle, or MRI comes back. There may be a condition where we need to avoid working a specific oblique. And so we need to know if we're working it or not, right? We can't just say core. But I think most of us would agree that the default answer would be, oh, you're working your core. Like, wow, well, then anybody could practice fitness, because then you would just say, oh, you're working. I have a quick fun story about that. When I was first teaching and I was going to a fitness place, I'm not going to tell you the name of it, but it rhymes with Fred's. And we had a biomechanics test coming up, and one of the girls in class was working by the weight room. And I was joking, but she was studying. She actually had her notes out. I was like, ma'am, what muscles are we working when we do? And I think I did like a radiology question, because that's what she was studying. It was a joke, because I knew she was studying it. I was just being dad joke. Y'all, true story. I don't know where this guy came from. It was like Batman, just like a puff of smoke, and he came on a zip line. He was like, sir, I heard your question, and the answer is the forearm muscles. She was like, oh my God. And I looked at him. I mean, this dude was great shape, worked there. And I looked at him and I said, thank you. Now I know that it's the forearm. And she's just like, oh my God. The lesson is, what does that even mean? The forearm muscles, the glutes, the quads, the trunk, the core, pecs. That's the verbiage we have been brainwashed in, and we need to be beyond that. I'm not saying they, we have to know who's working and how they're working to be the best version of ourselves we can be. Okay? Gravity is trying to twist his pelvis left transversal, which means it's trying to twist his trunk right transversal. I need you guys to see that first before I move on. Gravity is trying to make his sternum look more at his right hip. Does that make sense? So the logic. If gravity is trying to make his trunk twist to the right, I don't need muscles that are trying to twist to the right. That's a little weird because of the cap and bottle concept. But it's logical. If gravity's trying to make his trunk twist to the right, why in the world would I need muscles that are also trying to twist his trunk to the right? I just set that precedent for a week and a half. Gravity's trying to extend me. Why in the world do I need extension pulling muscles? No different. So the agonists that I need are left transverse trunk rotation pulls. I'm telling you, it may not seem right. But if you had a rope that you attached to his feet, you lassoed it to his feet, and you pulled opposite in the direction of gravity, you would have right external obliques and left internal obliques. And guess what? Those muscles are left transverse. Before we do dynamics, I need to make sure we understand isometrics. Does it make sense? And in biomechanics, we're going to learn about external and internal obliques. Grace, is that what you have context?
Pretty similar. I always like to turn off everything, like where would his legs go. And so gravity is trying to turn his legs to the truth. That is right. Then there's no motion happening, so C would be isometric.
I'm going to do it for the people, you guys. Oh, Lord. One day I'm not getting up. I'm going to do it for the people. And I'm only showing you about the motion. So it's this way. If he relaxes, he's going to have more right transverse trunk. Check this out. If he lowers it, he's going to have more right transverse trunk. He's literally twisted to his right. So if gravity's trying to twist his trunk to the right, he doesn't need muscles that are pulling to the right. He needs muscles that are pulling to the left. It's just hard to see because we're traditionally moving smaller pieces about bigger pieces. But for the human body, we can move bigger pieces about smaller pieces. It's just going to go opposite. When we do these illusionary things, it's righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. But that in itself is super confusing. So all we're doing is looking at change in position, using these internal landmarks, not using external global landmarks, keeping it local, not global. It's like what they say with the local economy, right? Keep your money local, shop local. That was not paid advertisement by the other business people. All right, before we get to dynamics, let's just do let's get our confidence back up and do a non-traditional exercise. And again, if there's no external force at the start, then do the motion first and then see the external forces. We analyze motion joint by joint. We analyze muscles joint by joint. What joint is being worked in this exercise? In terms of axial motion, knees, hips, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees, absolutely. Now, that's not disrespecting isometrics that are happening in other places, right, to create a rigid link, but that's a separate conversation to what we're having about the motion, the dynamic question at the knees. So in other words, just because we're talking about the knees, that doesn't mean he doesn't have hip muscles working isometrically or trunk muscles working isometrically or cervical muscles isometrically. I'm not disrespecting those at all. It's just we have to have a separate conversation for all those things. Make sense? So let's have a quick knee conversation, get our confidence back up with a non-traditional exercise, and we should be able to identify agonists and contractions based off of the motions we see. Where's the concentric phase? Where's the eccentric phase? Those are all the things we're going to have to do for the test. And remember, from last class, we don't assume. It's one of our commandments. We don't assume. So we can't assume that the first movement's going to be concentric. We may pattern recognize, hey, I've noticed that a lot of first motions are concentric. But we can't assume that. But what we can do is infer. And when you have inference, you have information. You have data. You're not making blind assumptions. So that's what that is information that we could use to then infer. Correct, Anne. External force is trying to do what to the knees during this exercise? Absolutely trying to extend it. He doesn't need knee extensors. That would be a bad day right there. He may blow his knee out. We can do these thought experiments. You have enough life data to answer these little thought experiments. So we need knee flexors. Why don't we say hamstrings? Well, there's different hamstrings are made up of different muscles, and there's more than just the hamstrings that are knee flexion pulls. And any one of those 7 main knee flexors might have a problem with it. And so that's how we have to learn. Semimembranosus doesn't scream knee flexion puller, is what I'm trying to say. But if we say, I see why I need knee flexion pullers as a team or a group, and then the semimembranosus is on that team, heck of a lot easier. Or reverse engineering, once you get the use of seeing things for their pull, saying, what does the semimembranosus do? The answer is, how does it pull? It's a knee flexion puller at the knee. It's a hip extension puller at the hip. And so you can eventually you'll be able to reverse engineer these things to say, how would I work a specific muscle? You have to know how it pulls. Flexors do extension eccentrically. Flexors do flexion concentric. I would demonstrate this exercise, but I'm going to choose not to do this one just because, time. That's it. It's time. We're on time. One more before the crescendo of our dynamic pelvic girdle rotation about the trunk. Let's do a full range of motion here. So in other words, we're going to start on the left, nice and easy, slow and controlled, and we're going to do a full range of pronation. But we don't assume, right? So let's go left to middle and then middle to left. Maybe it's the same muscles the whole time. Maybe it's not. That's for you to figure out using the tools that we've been talking about. There is a reason I'm doing this, is because when we do this windshield wiper dynamically, there's going to be a similar concept. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, where the external forces change even though the range of motion stays the same. Well, let's go fully supine to semi-prone, then semi-prone to fully prone. Fully prone to semi-supine, phantom positions there, semi-prone, and then semi-prone to supine. Tongue twisters. You want to hear a fun tongue twister? Don't answer that. You can imagine that. That's how I met my wife. Hey, do you want to hear a tongue twister? She's like, you're dope. And I'm like, yes, I am. She's like, all right, I'll hang out with you. I think she adopted me, honestly. Anybody ever heard of Betty Botter? The tongue twister, Betty Botter. Betty Botter bought some butter, but she said this butter's better if I put it in my batter and my batter, so she bought a bit of better butter, put it in a bit of better, made a bit of better, so the better butter, bought a bit of better butter. Thank you very much. Hufflepuff, man, I'm telling you.
How long did that take you to get?
We had to learn it for auctioneering school. And so I chopped it up. Like when I hear things a lot, like I have good long-term memory, but my short-term memory is a joke. So like I still remember, but soft would like the yonder window breaks, it is the east, and then Juliet is the sun, arise for her son, and killed the envious moon who is sick and pale with grief, that her made our far more fair than she. What if her eyes were there, they in her head, the brightness of her cheek would shame those stars as daylight doth and lamp her eyes to heaven, would through the airy region stream so bright that earth would sing and think when I night. See how she means a cheek upon her hand, or that or a glove upon her hand, I might touch that cheek. I was like from ninth grade, but I couldn't remember like what I ate for breakfast. It's like I can do decent with like memorizing things, but the problem is I think it takes up space. I should remember important things. Like I don't know loved ones' birthdays. Yeah, I've never forgotten my wife's birthday though, because we have the same birthday.
I was gonna say, what does it correlate with?
Winning. As a kid, I always joked. I was like, I know 2 birthdays, mine and baby Jesus, brother, my sister. That's why I like my family. They know me pretty well. They'll like my mom and dad, so they'll like send me a heads up that it's your sister's birthday today. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that.
My parents just do that with like one birthday or better, like it's birthday. Like kids, they're like, it's like birthday.
Wow, yeah, I'm out.
Like, thank you.
I think I'm just starting now that I'm approaching 50. I think I have months down. Like my sister's born in November.
Yeah.
I think my dad's like summertime.
So sorry.
I'm like that. I'm the worst. But at least I got Betty Botter.
There you go. I know my mom's only because it's 2 days before mine.
Oh, that's cool. That works. All right, you guys. Pronation. Wouldn't during this motion, gravity would be trying to supinate you. So I need pronators through concentric. However, we don't assume when I start to finish off my pronation from midway to fully prone or 90 to 180, I'm going to start using degrees. Gravity is no longer trying to supinate me here. Gravity would be trying to actually pronate me here, right? So I don't continue. If I still use pronators, let's slam the hammer down. Think of it like this. If I had a rope or a string tied to the PVC pipe and I pulled it up like this, gravity would be trying to drop it down to my right. But if I tilted it over, now gravity is trying to drop it down to my left. It's no different. So we're used to seeing full ranges of motion with the external force consistently trying to do the same thing. But there's no law or rules that says that has to be. Okay? So supinators, eccentrically. Supinators eccentric. Because the supinators need to be on because gravity's trying to pronate you, and the motion I saw was pronation. So supinators do pronation eccentrically. Good?
I did like from fully supine, I just did the first part backwards.
The which part?
Like the first part, I think you did.
Here to here?
Yeah, I think I just did it.
No, that's okay. You know why it's great? Because it doesn't cost you any points. And we'll get on the bike, and then for the test, you're gonna be like working those traffic cones. But does it make sense that I need pronators concentrically from here to there?
Yeah.
Okay? Because gravity is trying to supinate me. But gravity is no longer trying to supinate me from here to here. So I would need supinators eccentrically. Supinators concentric. Pronators eccentric. So as future allied health professionals, if you wanted to do pronators concentric through a full range of motion, well then you need to supply a manual resistance from here to here. Sense?
So what motion would be sorry.
No, do not apologize. Say you're sorry for saying you're sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm like
That's okay.
from here
This is weird.
to here. What would you want?
Do me a favor. Stand up. So we'll start it out. Here. So you can tell the gravity was trying to do this. So we had pronation against the resistance that's trying to supinate. So we have to use chronometers constantly. But then once we tip it over, it's now so you need supinators here. So think of this quadrant. That's how we teach it in power muscle. This would be like quadrant 1. Fully supine to semi-prone, and then quadrant 2 to be semi-prone to fully prone. So think of it as you need, in this example, pronate all that. You need chronometers to quadrant 1. Relax. Okay. Now we let it fall. I need supinators fall. So for those of you at home, what we were doing is saying, think of a full range of motion is 180 degrees. So we're just chopping it up into like 290-degree segments. So in quadrant 1 would be fully supine to semi-prone. Gravity's trying to supinate me. I need pronators. But in quadrant 2, gravity's trying to pronate me. I need supinators. Cool. So this could be an example where, and I'm telling you this works. Like I worked as an athletic trainer for like 10 years. There are people that may literally think you're working the same muscles because it's full range of motion. It's another full range of motion. But we know better because we see why better. Okay. Any questions or clarifications before we go into the big one for today? Big one for today. See if we can find a good dynamic. That's not bad. I'm trying to find a before and after. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys, here we go. There it went. Grace, do you see it? Bueller. Oh, there it is. Bueller. All right, guys. Now, the reason I did the radial ulnar joint first is because we know that if I go from there to there, I have to pass in the middle. I feel like if I go from here in one picture and then I'm there in the other picture, I know I kind of have to pass the border. Okay? So I want us to think of this very similar. I am here, and then I'm going to raise my feet up. We know that there's a joint motion associated with that at the pelvis. Then I'm going to have, so basically my sternum's looking at one of my hips here, but to go to my sternum looking at my other hip, my sternum's going to eventually have to pass through anatomical. Does that make sense? So I would like us to look at this just like we did the radial ulnar joint. I want to go from there to anatomical. What had to get me up there? And then what had to lower me down to here? Does that make sense? It's easier that way to just know I didn't magically go from my legs being on the left side to my legs being on the right side. I want us to be able to see that transition of when gravity's trying to do one thing to when gravity's trying to do the other thing. Okay?
So let's go looking at the trunk stuff.
Well, there's pelvic girdle trunk stuff, right? So the pelvic girdle is going to have motion. And we could talk about the pelvic girdle rotation, but when we get to muscles, we can't say pelvic girdle rotators. We have to bring it back. Well, what was the motion that made the pelvic girdle go? In this case, it's the trunk. The hips have nothing to do with it. He can move his hips all he wants. It's not going to make the pelvis smooth, right? So we have to bring the muscles back to the trunk because those are consistent. Those are going to be the same muscle. If it helps you to warm up, do isometric here. and then do isometric there. And then you can add the dynamics. So I just want to make sure we're clear. I'm asking the same question we did to the radioulnar joint. From here to there, so like A to B, and then from B to C. Does that make sense? Agonist and contractions at the trunk that made the pelvis spin. What's fun is the pelvic girdle rotation was the same, the whole range of motion, just like the radioulnar joint was the same, the whole range of motion. But that doesn't mean the muscles were the same. And it doesn't mean the contractions were the same. Just like with the radioulnar joint. Also, if anybody's interested in being a spring intern for 310, talk to Grace after class. If you want more information, you're not committed to anything. But if you're interested, if you like this material and you want to develop your knowledge and help out in the springtime, let us know. We'll have our people. Baby buggy bumper. That was a fun one too. Rubber baby buggy bumper, rubber baby buggy bumper, rubber baby buggy bumper, rubber baby buggy bumper.
So the start to the is it pelvic girdle?
Say that one more time.
Starting to the hip is like identify.
Well, so sternum to the hips is not necessarily looking at pelvic girdle, it's looking at trunk, right? So the pelvic girdle spin is and is. The pelvis is either spinning to its right, spinning to its left. The trunk motion is about the landmarks of your sternum to your pelvis. Because if you think about it, the basketball doesn't have any change in position on any marks of the basketball. It's a whole movement. But our trunk has different landmarks because the bones are moving against each other, right? So unless I rip the ball apart, everything on the ball is going to move at the same time. So when we're looking at these landmarks, elegant question, when we're looking at these landmark changes, it's not to dictate pelvic girdle rotation. That's an is. That's just how is it spinning. It's really to dictate the trunk change in position or the trunk position.
Oh, right there.
It gets even more fun than this. Hey, it's all gonna be good. It's all gonna be good. What do you throw the javelin?
No, I'm not trying.
Okay.
I want to dance too.
And you what team?
I want to dance.
Oh, heck yeah. I don't know. I'm a biomechanist, right? So I see body types and I'm like, looks like she can jump a javelin. But if you think about it, even if it's dance teams, like there are moves and there are skills you're performing now that you would have never dreamed you could be doing 10, 15 years ago. So it's like, how did that happen? It didn't happen overnight. You had to practice, you had to work at it. And as you do it, you're going to get better at it. Your confidence is going to get better. And then you can look back and be like, man, pretty good. This dance team stuff. It's the same concept. It's no different. And I think that separates students that succeed. And remember, success is relative. I wasn't an A student. But whether your success is just passing the class, that's cool too. But there's a correlation between how much work, how much practice you do, and how good you're going to be as a whatever sport or activity you do. The more ankles I take, the better I got at taping ankles. No different.
I think I'm just getting issues because I'm from that like here to hands-on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So try it, and that's okay. If you're getting confused starting here, start here. Start with what we've been having conversation about, which is motion, right? So let's do a practice together. What motion would I have at the trunk when I go from there to anatomical? The trunk. I'm twisted to the. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Left.
I hate that word, right and wrong and right and left. That's so mean. I'm twisted to my right, and now I'm not twisted to my right. The motion had to be left transverse trunk. So that's a given, right? I had left transverse trunk rotation. Now, during that left transverse trunk rotation, what was gravity trying to do to me? Gravity was trying to twist me to my right. So if gravity was trying to twist my trunk to the right, I don't need muscles that are pulling to the right. I need left transverse pullers. Oh, left transverse trunk rotators do left transverse trunk rotation. It's interesting. You could have started here in this example because you could have. That doesn't mean you have to. I just want you to get to Alexandria. Gravity's trying to twist my trunk to the right. I don't need right pullers. I need left pullers. What motion would I see when I come up? Left transverse trunk rotation. Left transverses do left transverse concentric. From here to there, we don't assume. We don't assume. The motion is the same at the pelvis. The motion is the same at the trunk. But that doesn't mean the muscles are going to be the same. Because gravity is not trying to do the same thing here that it was here. In this quadrant, gravity is now trying to twist my trunks to the left. So I don't need left transverse pullers. I would need right transverse pullers. So again, the lesson here is that when you're doing these exercises, you're actually alternating between agonistic pullers. You're switching muscles. You're not working the same muscles. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's not okay. We just need to know these things when we're doing rehabilitations and we're doing strength and conditioning. We have to just be able to see that, hey, I'm not working the same muscles all the time. Just like, again, if I'm doing this, I'd be working these, and then I'd be working these, and then I'd be, you get a switch. Agonists are going to become antagonists, and antagonists are going to become agonists. And it's okay that you're not doing it fast. That will come with practice. Smooth is fast. So as long as you have a process, and as long as you stick to that process, it's going to work out great.
Split up like the FABs. BBC, and then once the force switch, I think
Chris, do you mind come and say that in the camera, just to, and then you could use the
Yeah, so for this exercise and then the pronation supination, I did 2 FABC lists. So for the first quadrant, I did 1 FABC, and then once it switched to the other side, I did another list of FABC because the force changed.
let me wrap the file and we're going to go ahead. Not a problem. And guys, again, right now, your brains, just like my brain was, is like, what in the world is going on? But think about when we think about the precedent. There were some things we learned in Unit 2 where you were like, what in the world is going on? But then all of a sudden you knew what was going on. So there's precedent that this will come and it'll get easier and cleaner and we're going to be riding the bike. Okay, we got this. Okay. So Grace and I will hang out after class for anybody